Thursday's episode of Days of Our Lives may not be built around one giant shock, but that may be exactly what makes it so effective. This looks like the kind of episode where Salem gets more dangerous through conversations, not explosions. Where one request for help, one difficult question, or one poorly timed truth can start shifting everything. And that is what makes this episode feel so compelling. Let's start with Johnny and EJ, because this could easily be the most emotionally complicated dynamic in Thursday's episode. The spoilers say EJ is thrilled when Johnny comes to him for help, and that reaction alone makes this scene feel loaded. For Johnny, this may simply be about needing support in a situation that has become too messy to manage alone. If Kate's move earlier in the week left him cornered or uncertain, then turning to EJ may feel like the fastest way to regain some control. But for EJ, this may mean far more than solving a problem. Johnny seeking him out may feel like validation, like renewed importance, and maybe even like the opening EJ has been waiting for. This is not just about being useful, it is about being needed. And for a character like EJ, that kind of moment carries emotional weight as well as strategic value. Because EJ rarely helps without also calculating what the situation gives him in return. Even if he genuinely wants to be there for Johnny, his support usually comes with influence attached. He does not just step into a crisis. He positions himself inside it. So while Johnny may believe he is asking for straightforward help, he could actually be allowing EJ much deeper into his decisions than he realizes. And that may be the real turning point here. If Johnny starts relying on EJ now, Thursday may become about more than one request. It may be the beginning of a shift in power between them, one where EJ starts reclaiming a larger role in Johnny's world. That is what makes this story so compelling. It may look like a father helping his son, but it could quietly become something far more complicated than that. Then there is Chanel, whose conversation with Paulina may carry some of the most uncomfortable emotional tension in the episode. At this point, Chanel should be stepping into relief. The adoption is finalized, and after everything she has been through, this should be the moment where she can finally breathe a little easier. But instead of settling into peace, Thursday may push her into a conversation that immediately feels unsettled. The fact that she goes to Paulina with questions suggests Chanel is no longer satisfied with reassurance alone. She wants clarity. And that detail matters, because it suggests Chanel may already feel that something about Paulina's behavior is off. Maybe it is a secret Paulina is trying to protect. Maybe it is a truth she is trying to soften. Or maybe it is simply the instinctive feeling that her mother knows more than she is willing to admit. Whatever the reason, Chanel may be walking into this scene ready to push harder than usual. Because if Paulina avoids the full truth, changes the subject, or tries to protect Chanel with partial answers, Chanel may not let that slide. She has been through too much emotional upheaval to accept vague comfort now. If she senses hesitation, that hesitation itself may become the answer she is really hearing. And that could change the emotional tone of the scene very quickly. This may not need to turn into a loud confrontation to leave an impact. In fact, it could be stronger if it stays controlled. A mother hesitating, a daughter noticing, the growing realization that trust may be slipping in quiet, painful ways. If Chanel leaves this conversation feeling less reassured than when she entered it, then Thursday may deepen a family fracture that becomes much more important later. Now let's talk about Maggie, because her storyline may be one of the quietest on paper but still one of the most important. The spoilers ask whether Maggie will grant a favor, and that kind of setup is always worth watching closely. On the surface, it sounds simple. But with Maggie, these moments are rarely simple for long. If someone is coming to her now with a request, then it is probably something that places her in a difficult emotional or moral position almost immediately. That is where the tension begins. Maggie is not reckless with her compassion. She is the kind of person who understands that saying yes can sometimes create as many problems as saying no. So if she hesitates, it likely means she already sees the larger consequences. Granting this favor may help someone she cares about, but it could also drag her into a situation she would rather avoid or set off complications she cannot easily undo. Because the real issue may not be the favor itself, but what Maggie's answer reveals. Is she willing to take a personal risk for someone else? Is she being emotionally pressured into a choice she does not fully trust? Or does she understand that one act of kindness in Salem can quickly become the first step toward a much bigger mess? Thursday may not show the full impact of Maggie's choice right away, but it has the feel of one of those decisions that seems minor in the moment and then quietly reshapes much more than anyone expected. Over on the business side of Salem, Gabby and Theo sit down for a conversation, and even if that sounds more low-key than the family drama elsewhere, this scene could still carry a surprising amount of tension. Because on days of our lives, business discussions are rarely just about numbers, plans, or polite strategy. They are often about control, who has it, who wants more of it, and who is willing to push harder to get their way. Gabby is not the kind of person who enters any conversation unprepared, especially when opportunity, influence, or leverage may be involved. So if she is sitting across from Theo now, chances are this is not some routine check-in. There may already be a deeper issue underneath the surface, whether it is a clash in priorities, a difference in vision, or a quiet disagreement about how far each of them is willing to go. Theo may approach the conversation from a more measured or practical angle, while Gabby may already be thinking several steps ahead. If that happens, then what starts as a business discussion could slowly reveal a power imbalance, or even the beginning of one. Not because either of them says something explosive, but because their goals may not line up as neatly as they want to believe. Sometimes the most revealing scenes are the ones where everyone stays calm, but the subtext keeps getting sharper. A pause, a hesitation, a subtle pushback. Those are the moments that can show viewers a quiet shift taking place. So Thursday may not deliver a major blow-up here, but it could absolutely move this dynamic into more complicated territory. Then we have Justin and Bonnie, and this storyline may bring a quieter but very real kind of emotional pressure. The spoilers ask whether Justin can convince Bonnie to see things his way, and that immediately tells us this is not a simple conversation. Bonnie is clearly not starting from a place of agreement, which means Justin may already be facing resistance before he even makes his case. Because if Bonnie has planted herself firmly on one side of the issue, facts alone may not be enough to move her. Justin may have to do more than explain his point logically. He may have to make Bonnie feel why this matters. He may have to show her the emotional truth behind his position, not just the practical argument for it. Bonnie is not usually someone who changes direction easily just because someone asks her to. If she feels dismissed, pressured, or misunderstood, she may dig in even more. So Justin's challenge may not simply be to persuade her. It may be to reach her in a way that makes her want to listen. If Justin lowers his guard, speaks honestly, and lets Bonnie see what is really driving him, this could become one of those scenes that lands harder than expected. Not because it is loud, but because it feels emotionally truthful. The conflict here may not come from spectacle. It may come from two people trying to bridge a gap before it widens into something much more difficult to repair. So even without a big twist, this storyline could still matter a lot. If Justin fails, the disagreement may deepen. But if he finds the right emotional note, Thursday could quietly shift the tone of their relationship in a meaningful way. So when you look at everything coming up on Days of Our Lives for Thursday, April 2, 2026, this episode feels like a day where questions, favors, and emotional pressure begin quietly reshaping the week's biggest storylines. Johnny may be stepping into a risky alliance with EJ without fully understanding the cost. Chanel may be pushing Paulina toward answers she does not want to give. Maggie may be forced to make a choice that sounds simple but carries real consequences. Gabby and Theo may discover that business is not as straightforward as it seems. And Justin may have to fight harder than expected to bring Bonnie onto his side. It may not rely on one huge reveal, but it has the kind of emotional and strategic tension that can change everything one conversation at a time. And in Salem, those are often the episodes that matter most, the ones where the next disaster begins quietly, before anyone realizes how far the consequences are about to spread.